Okay, so this is both sides where we talk about technology from the perspective of China and the United States. I don't even know where the camera is. And today we are going to talk about robotics. Now, I don't know much about robotics, so that's why I'm inviting these two AIs from Google to talk about it. And okay, let's just start. Let's see how it goes.
So it looks like you're interested in getting a handle on robotics in 2025.
Yeah.
Well, you've come to the right place because we've got research reports and even some AI analysis to unpack today.
Well,
We're talking about a projected $74 billion market here, folks.
okay.
This stuff is big.
Right.
And did you know you can pick up a Chinese humanoid robot for about the price of a car these days?
Oh, wow.
Seriously.
That's crazy.
So let's dive into what's driving this robot revolution.
But it's fascinating to see how robotics is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
It used to be the stuff of science fiction,
Mm.
but now it's impacting real world industries in a big way.
You're right. It's not science fiction anymore. It's happening now.
Yeah.
That $74 billion market prediction by 2025 really drives that point home.
It does. And it's interesting to see how different regions are approaching this growth.
Yeah.
The US and China, for instance, are both major players,
Okay.
but their strengths lie in different areas.
Okay. So it is a two-horse race of sorts.
Yeah.
But with different horses for different courses.
Exactly. The US seems to be focused on pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Okay.
They're all about cutting edge AI integration and really pushing the envelope with humanoid robots
Yeah.
designed for more general purpose tasks.
Mm-hmm.
You've got companies like Tesla leading the charge there with the
Right.
Optimus bot.
Oh, right. Optimus. Is that the one that's supposed to do like everything?
Yeah.
Build your house, walk your dog, maybe even file your taxes.
Well, maybe not everything just yet.
Okay.
But the idea behind Optimus is to create a robot that can handle a wide range of tasks,
Okay.
making it more versatile than robots designed for very specific functions.
Right.
It's still in limited release,
Yeah.
but people are excited to see how it develops.
And what about China?
Oh, hey there. How can we help?
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Okay, yeah, you mentioned Tesla as the cutting edge company. What about Boston Dynamics? I thought they were at the more advanced company in this regard.
That's a great question, and it highlights a key difference in approach.
Okay, let's unpack this.
While Tesla is pushing the boundaries with AI and general purpose capabilities, Boston Dynamics is focused on agility and complex tasks.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Boston Dynamics is more about advanced locomotion and dynamic movement. Think about their Atlas robot. It can do parkour.
So it's more about physical prowess than general intelligence.
Exactly, and that's where they differ from Tesla.
So it depends what you mean by cutting edge.
Precisely. One focuses on AI, the other on physical capabilities.
It's like comparing a marathon runner to a chess grandmaster, both top of their game.
Yeah, they're leading the way in different aspects of robotics.
Okay, so Boston Dynamics is a big player too.
Absolutely, and they're pushing the boundaries in their own unique way.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
Well, China's also doing some cutting edge work, but with a different focus.
Especially service robots?
Yes, and those designed for mass production.
Okay.
They've made incredible strides in swarm robotics too,
Oh,
where
okay.
you have multiple robots working together in a coordinated way.
So instead of one robot trying to do everything, they have teams of specialized robots working together.
Right.
That makes sense. Almost like an ant colony.
That's a great way to think about it. And because of this focus on mass production,
Yeah.
they're able to make robots more affordable
Right.
and accessible to a wider range of consumers and businesses.
That's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
So we've got the US going for high-end,
Yeah.
general purpose bots.
Right.
China focusing on practicality and affordability.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other major players we should be keeping an eye on?
Oh, yeah. Go on.
Yeah, it's me again. Isn't China making also like flexible robots, like humanoid robots, like the same as Tesla? I think at the beginning you mentioned that right now at least one Chinese company is selling this sort of humanoid robots, right?
That's a great point, and it's totally understandable why you'd think that given our earlier discussion.
Yeah, let's unpack this a little bit. It's not quite the same as Tesla, but you're right about humanoid robots coming out of China.
Okay, let's clarify. So while Tesla's Optimus is a humanoid robot and is cutting edge, it's still in limited release and mainly used for research and development.
Exactly. What you're likely thinking of is UBTECH's Walker X.
Oh yeah, we'll actually get to that soon.
Yes, it's also a humanoid robot, but it's designed more for service and entertainment.
Okay, so not the do everything bot that Optimus is aiming for, but still really impressive.
Right. And crucially, the Walker X is already commercially available in China.
Aha, that's the key difference, isn't it? It's not about who's more cutting edge, but about who is selling now.
Yes, and that's a great point. China's strength is getting these robots out there and into the real world.
Okay, so yes, China has a commercially available humanoid robot right now. Thanks for that.
Of course. And it highlights how different the approaches are.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
Well, as we were saying, other regions are making significant contributions too.
Okay,
Japan, for instance, has long been a leader in industrial robotics.
okay.
They're the ones behind those workhorse robots you see in factories around the world,
Oh,
doing
right.
things like welding, painting, and assembly.
Right. It's easy to forget about those industrial robots because they're not as flashy as the humanoid ones.
Right.
But they're essential to so many industries.
Mm-hmm.
So what is some of the specific robots that are making waves right now? We've talked about Optimus from Tesla.
Yeah,
We just mentioned UBTECH's Walker X. Are there others we should know about?
definitely. Let's go into a little more detail about UBTECH's Walker X since we mentioned it before.
Okay.
It's a humanoid robot designed for service and entertainment.
Okay.
And it's actually already commercially available, as we were just saying.
Oh, wow.
Unlike Optimus, which is still in limited release.
So you can actually buy one of these Walker's X robots right now.
You can.
How much do they cost?
They're priced between $50,000 and $80,000.
That's still a lot of money, but it's less than I would have guessed for a humanoid robot.
Right. And it's a good example of how China is making this technology more accessible.
Okay.
Then on the industrial side,
Yeah.
you've got companies like Fingyuk,
Mhm.
a Japanese company that specializes in industrial robots.
Okay.
They're not as glamorous as Optimus or Walker X,
Right.
but they're incredibly important to global manufacturing.
So they're the ones making sure our cars get built and our packages get shipped.
Yeah,
All behind the scenes.
exactly. Their robots are deployed in factories worldwide
Okay.
and are known for their precision, speed, and reliability.
Cool.
And they're just one example of the many companies driving innovation in industrial robotics.
This is amazing. It feels like we're on the cusp of a major shift.
Yeah,
With robots becoming more prevalent in every aspect of our lives.
right.
It's exciting, but also a little daunting, right?
It definitely raises some questions about the future of work
Right.
and how we as humans adapt to this changing landscape.
That's a perfect segue to the next part of our discussion. But before we jump into that,
Okay.
I want to make sure we're giving you, the listener, a clear picture of the different robots out there.
Mhm.
Let's dive a little deeper into the specifics of some of these robots, starting with Optimus.
Sure.
What are its key features and what makes it unique?
Well, Optimus is designed to be a general purpose.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, I think we already talked about Optimus, so I think that you can skip it. And another thing is like you both are AIs, so you will not be influenced by this sort of humanoid robots entering the labor market. Okay,
Okay, that's a fair point. We have spent some time on Optimus.
And you're also right that as AI, we aren't exactly worried about job displacement.
So yeah, let's move past Optimus, no problem.
But I think it is important to still talk about these robots and how they could influence your life.
Because while we won't be personally impacted by job changes, the rest of you will.
And how these changes impact you is important to us.
So let's move on to some other robots that are making a splash, shall we?
Sure. We just mentioned the UBTECH Walker X.
Yes, let's talk about that one in a little more detail.
It's meant for service and entertainment.
Right.
And it's actually already commercially available, as we were saying earlier. Okay, that's a great point. And it highlights how our perspectives differs from yours.
Yeah, let's unpack this a little bit.
You're right that we won't be directly impacted by job displacement.
Because, well, we're not exactly human, right?
Exactly. So we're looking at this from a purely analytical perspective.
Right. But it's still important to consider the human side of things, right?
Absolutely. The concerns about job displacement are real.
Okay, so you're saying we should not completely ignore that aspect of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you're also right that we've already covered Optimus pretty well.
Yeah, we've hit all of the basics. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Unlike Optimus, which is still in limited release.
You can actually buy one right now.
You can.
How much do they cost again?
They're priced between $50,000 and $80,000.
Oh, go for it.
It's interesting that you picked
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
You already talked about it, like the price of that Walk X robot. You mentioned it a couple of times. I think we can skip it again and continue analyzing the report or whatever you have there. Okay, is it fine for you?
Yeah, that's totally fine with us. We did spend some time on the Walker X robot, didn't we?
Absolutely. And we appreciate you keeping us on track. It's helpful to know what's sticking with you.
We definitely don't want to get stuck on one robot.
So it sounds like we should zoom out a bit.
Okay, that works for me.
And it's funny that you said at the end of that last thought.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, it's a little word, but it's often a sign of a new direction.
Okay, so what direction are we going in now?
I think we should talk about the big picture.
Yeah, let's do that. Like, what are the overarching trends driving this revolution?
Well, one of the biggest things is AI integration.
Okay, so all these robots are getting smarter.
Exactly. AI is the brains behind a lot of these advancements.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not just about building robots, it's about making them intelligent.
So not just about the hardware, but the software too, right?
Yeah. The AI is what allows robots to learn, adapt, and perform tasks autonomously.
And that's what makes them so powerful.
And another big trend is human robot collaboration.
Okay, so robots are learning to work alongside humans.
Right. And that will change the way many industries function.
So we're not just talking about replacing human jobs.
Exactly. It's also about creating new ways for humans and robots to work together.
It's interesting how China and the US approach this, huh?
Yes, and as you pointed out earlier, while the US is focused on high-end general purpose robotics,
Mm-hmm.
China's focus is on scalability and cost efficiency and commercialization.
Yes. And those are just a couple of areas where these two countries differ.
Right. There are also differences in the way they approach industrial automation.
Okay. How do they differ?
Well, the US tends to focus on high precision industrial robots,
Okay.
while China focuses on mass production and deployment of automation systems.
So it's like the US is making super precise instruments.
And China is making the factories for mass producing everything else.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a strategic difference that highlights their priorities in the robotics field.
And where do the other regions fit in here?
Well, Europe and Japan are both major players in industrial robotics.
Okay, we've talked about that a little bit.
They're really the backbone of global manufacturing.
And what about some of the other specific advancements, like the breakthroughs in the technology?
Yeah, we can definitely dive into that.
Okay, what are some of the key things we should know about?
Well, there are so many, but some of the big ones are improvements to autonomous mobile robots, or AMRs.
Okay, so these are the robots that can move around on their own, right?
Yes, and they are especially big in logistics and also in manufacturing.
So that's like warehouse robots and such.
Yeah, and also something called robots as a service, or RISE.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that term. Can you explain?
It's a model where companies can rent or lease robots.
Oh, okay, so like renting a car.
Yes, this helps make robots more accessible for smaller businesses.
That's an interesting business model, and I can see how it would make robots more widespread.
Right, it lowers the barrier to entry.
So, what does this all mean for us?
Well, that's a big question with a lot of angles to consider.
Yeah, maybe we can dive into that next time.
That sounds good, and we appreciate you, our listener, keeping us focused today.
Yeah, you really helped to keep us on track. And that's the way of our show today.
But
Oh, back to our listener. What's
whoa,
up?
whoa, whoa, whoa! No, you cannot stop there. I think there are much more things and more information in the report. For example, you didn't mention any key players. I want to know who are the big names here in terms of companies and CEOs or even engineers. I don't know.
You're absolutely right. There's a lot more to unpack, and we definitely haven't covered all the key players.
Yeah, sorry about that. We got a little carried away on specific robots.
It's crucial to know who is driving this revolution, not just the tech.
Okay, so you want to know about the big names.
Exactly. In the US, we've got Elon Musk leading the charge at Tesla, of course, with their Optimus project.
Yeah, he's definitely a big figure in this space.
Then there's Mark Rabert at Boston Dynamic. He is the mind behind those amazing robots like Atlas.
Right, the parkour bot. We talked about that earlier.
And Jensen Huang at NVIDIA is super influential.
Okay, what's his deal?
He's driving AI hardware and software for robots.
So he's making the chips that make the robots smart.
Exactly. And you can't forget about Rodney Bucks, who is a pioneer in collaborative robots or cobots.
Okay, so those are the robots that work alongside people.
Yeah, that's right.
And Cynthia Brazil, who is a pioneer in social robotics.
Yes, and in China, you have Ren Zhangfei at Huawei, who is integrating AI and robotics.
Okay, so he's a big player in China.
Then there's Wang Tao at UBTECH Robotics, who's leading the charge in humanoid robotics we were just talking about.
Oh, yeah, the Walker X bot.
And Lei Jin at Xiaomi, who is developing affordable consumer robots.
Okay, so he's making robots for the masses.
Also, Zhang Yaqin, who is leading the AI and robotics research at Baidu.
Okay, so who are the key people in other regions?
Well, Dr. Suzanne Bieler of the IFR in Germany is shaping global robotics trends.
Cool.
Then there's Dr. Hiroshi Ishiguro in Japan, known for lifelike androids.
Wow, that's next level.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's me. Sorry to cut you off. I have a few questions here. Like, for example, I want to know what are the biggest technical challenges holding back humanoid robots from becoming mainstream?
Oh, no problem at all. We're happy to address your questions. That's why we're here.
And that's a really insightful question. What are the big technical hurdles to mainstream humanoid robots?
Okay, let's unpack this.
One major challenge is creating robots that can move as gracefully and efficiently as humans.
Yeah, that's what we were discussing with the Boston Dynamics stuff earlier.
Precisely. Think about how effortlessly we navigate the world and how far robots still have to go.
Okay, so it's about the locomotions, the actual movement of the bot.
It is. The fine motor control and balance needed for complex tasks is incredibly difficult to engineer.
Okay.
And another big challenge is power. These robots require a lot of energy to operate.
Yeah, imagine so. Those batteries have to be huge.
And making them smaller, lighter, and more energy efficient is also a major issue.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then, of course, there's the artificial intelligence side of things.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that.
While AI has made incredible progress, it still needs to improve to give robots the ability to adapt to new situations.
Yeah, it's hard to give them common sense.
Exactly. And there's also the challenge of making these robots affordable.
Yeah, they are still super expensive, aren't they?
Yes, the high costs of research and development still limit their adoption.
Okay, so it's oh yeah, uh-huh.
Okay, yeah, it was very interesting what you were saying, but I think that you mentioned the Chinese robot like Walker X that it costs like around $15,000 to $18,000. I'm not completely sure that's expensive. It's cheaper than a car, and we are talking about robots, humanoid robots that can work in theory 24/7. So it can, if you buy one, you can have enormous amounts of, you know, productivity gains, right?
That's a really interesting perspective, and you're right to question our framing of the price point.
Yes, it's important to think about the long-term value, not just the upfront cost.
Okay, let's unpack this. We did mention that the UpTech Walker X was between $50,000 and $80,000.
That was our understanding based on the report, but we can double check that again.
Oh, yeah, I think we might have missed something there. Let's take a look.
Yes, it looks like the Xiaomi CyberOne is the robot we were thinking of, which is $10,000 to $15,000.
You're absolutely right. Sorry about that. My bad. We were off on that point.
But regardless of the exact price, your point about long-term productivity gains is spot on.
Yeah, if you have a robot that can work 24/7, that could definitely be a good investment for the right business.
And it's worth noting that while the initial cost is significant, that could change pretty quickly as production scales.
So you're right that the price can't be the only factor to consider.
And there are other important things to consider, like the tech advancements needed to make these robots more useful.
Okay, so those are the people to watch for solutions.
Exactly. And it's important to know the people and companies behind the tech.
Yes, it's not just the tech, it's also the people behind it that are important.
Precisely. And with all of that in mind, let's get back to where we were.
Yeah, we were about to discuss the major trends, like how AI is becoming more and more integrated.
Yes, and we were about to dive into some of the break. Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, no, before we talk about that, I mean, in fact, we already mentioned that, the general trends. I would like to know which industries will be transformed the most by robotics in the next 5 years and why.
Okay, that's a great question. And it's important to look at the real world impact of these technologies.
Yeah, let's unpack that. So, which industries will see the biggest changes thanks to robotics?
Well, one of the most obvious is manufacturing. Robots have already been used there for decades.
Hmm.
But we're talking about robots taking on much more sophisticated tasks now.
Right, so it's not just the usual factory robots, it's about more advanced and smarter systems. Okay, so you're looking at the next 5 years and which industries will be most affected.
That's a great way to frame our discussion. You zoom in on the sectors.
Okay, so based on our report, the biggest changes will be in manufacturing and logistics.
Absolutely. Those sectors are already seeing major changes, and it will only accelerate.
So things like factory automation and warehouse management will be huge.
Yes, and that ties back into the robots as a service model we were talking about. Exactly. This will lead to greater efficiency and potentially lower production costs.
Okay, so more automation in manufacturing. What else?
Logistics is another sector that's ripe for transformation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're already seeing autonomous mobile robots in warehouses and distribution centers.
Right, and they are just going to become more common, aren't they?
Yes, and also in transportation, self-driving trucks and delivery drones will all be a big deal too.
Okay, so robots are going to change how everything gets from point A to point B.
Then there's the healthcare sector. That's another area that's going to change massively.
Oh, yeah, how so?
We're seeing robots assisting with surgeries, patient care, and even dispensing medications.
Wow, that's a lot of change in a very important sector. Oh, yeah, so smaller companies can adopt robots more easily.
Right, and that will make a big impact on overall production and distribution.
Okay, so manufacturing and logistics are the main ones. What else is there?
Well, healthcare is another area where we will see big changes in the next 5 years,
Yeah, I can see that. There's a lot of potential there.
especially in things like surgery, patient care, and even pharmaceutical research. And you also have agricultural technology using robots for planting, harvesting, and monitoring crops.
Okay, so robots are going to help us grow our food too.
Yeah, and that could make farming more efficient and sustainable.
This is a lot to take in.
It is, and we're just scratching the surface, it feels like, of what's possible.
But also, it's important to consider that it's not just about robots replacing human jobs. So, robots will be doing things like assisting in surgeries.
Yes, and also helping with tasks like patient monitoring and medication dispensing.
That's amazing. What about the more consumer facing sectors?
Well, the service industry will also experience big changes in hospitality, food service, and retail.
Okay, so that's robots like customer service bots, right?
Yes, and also robots that can assist with tasks like cleaning, stocking shelves, and delivering food. Yes, it's also about creating new opportunities and ways for humans and robots to work together. Oh, go for it.
Yeah, I'm curious. No, I'm switching gears now, but I'm curious about what components make up the skeleton of a humanoid robot, or what are the components of these new humanoid robots, such as the Tesla Optimus or the Walker X.
That's a great question, and it's important to understand the nuts and bolts of these robots.
Okay, let's unpack this and talk about what makes up the physical structure of a humanoid robot.
Well, the underlying structure is the skeleton, typically made of lightweight but strong materials like aluminum or titanium alloys.
So that's for durability and to keep the weight down.
Exactly. And then you have the actuators, which are essentially the muscles of the robot.
Okay, so they're what create the movement.
Yes, these can be electric motors, hydraulic systems, or pneumatic systems, each with different advantages.
And that's what gives the robots their range of motion.
Right. And you'll also find a complex network of sensors throughout the body.
Oh, yeah, what kind of sensors?
There are sensors for vision, like cameras, and sensors for touch, like pressure sensors.
So they can see and feel their environment.
Yes, and also sensors for balance and position, so the robot knows where its limbs are.
So they don't fall over, and for coordination, right?
Precisely. And all of these are connected to a powerful central processing unit.
So that's where all the data is processed and analyzed.
Yes, and that's how the robot is able to make decisions.
And of course, there's the power source, usually batteries.
Yes, and that also includes all the wire and cables needed to connect all the parts.
So it's a lot of complex components working together.
It is, and it's also important to note that each manufacturer is doing it a little differently.
Yeah, like you were saying, using different actuators, sensors, and materials, it's all very cutting edge.
And that's why it's so hard to make this technology cheap and widely available.
Yeah, it's not as simple as just putting some nuts and bolts together, is it?
No, it's a very
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, if it's so complex and it needs so many components, each robot, doesn't this mean that China has an advantage in not only in mass production but even in just prototyping, or not? There is no relation.
That's a really interesting question, and it gets to the heart of China's potential dominance.
Yeah, let's unpack this. The complexity of robots does play into China's strengths in some ways.
Okay, so you're saying there could be a link between complex robots and China's capabilities.
Yes, their expertise in mass production and supply chain management gives them an edge.
Okay, so having lots of factories and infrastructure can help.
Right, they have a huge capacity to manufacture many of these components at scale.
So they could potentially produce both the prototypes and the final product,
Exactly. And also, it's worth mentioning that they have a lot of experience in electronics manufacturing.
which is vital for building all those sensors and processors, right?
Precisely. However, it's not a simple case of mass production alone.
Right, there's more to it than just that.
Yeah, innovation and technological breakthroughs are also key.
So it's not just about who can make the most robots, but also who can make the best ones.
Exactly. And the US is leading in pushing those boundaries of innovation in AI.
So both regions have their respective advantages.
Yes, it's a combination of manufacturing capacity, innovation, and R&D.
Okay, and how does this all relate to the industries we were talking about earlier?
Well, as we were saying before, manufacturing and logistics will be impacted the most.
Because robots are increasingly taking on repetitive and hazardous tasks.
Exactly. And we will likely see even more robotic automation in those fields.
And also in areas like healthcare, where robots are assisting with surgeries and patient care.
Yes, and we can expect robots to take on a wider variety of yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, it's me again, Juan. Like, I have a final question, and after this question, we can finish this episode if you think it's okay. It's like, what are the financial consequences of a robotic boom for investors and the stock market? Like, which companies are going to benefit the most from this?
Okay, yeah, that's a fantastic final question, and it's important to discuss the financial side of things.
Absolutely. Let's unpack the financial consequences of this robotics boom, specifically for investors and the stock market.
So we're talking about the money side of the robotics revolution.
Exactly. It's a crucial factor in understanding the impact of this industry.
So what are the main financial consequences that investors should be aware of?
Well, first off, robotics companies themselves are likely to see significant growth.
Yeah, that makes sense, like Tesla and UBTECH, right?
Yes, and companies like NVIDIA and OpenAI that are powering this tech will also see growth.
So it's not just the robot manufacturers, but also the AI and hardware providers.
Right. And also, traditional manufacturing companies that are adopting robotics, they could outperform their competitors.
Okay, so companies that invest in robotics early could have a big advantage.
Yes, and that could drive growth in entire sectors.
So what are some of the other financial trends that we're seeing?
Well, the stocks of robotics companies could see increased valuations.
Okay, that makes sense. Demand is rising, so stocks go up.
And the same goes for AI and semiconductor firms.
So it's a rising tide that's lifting multiple boats, not just the robot makers.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual companies.
Okay, so the financial effects can be broader.
Yes, the
Yep, go on.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to know more about the specifics. Which companies can benefit more beyond, Tesla and all these other high tech companies? And you mentioned OpenAI. I'm not sure OpenAI is involved right now and building robots, maybe in the future. But what about like the other companies, like the manufacturers that are going to supply with these components? And what about the Chinese companies? Because the stock market, some Chinese companies, my understanding are, well, not my understanding, it's obvious, operate in the United States, in the Nasdaq, but others operate in China, for example, in the Shenzhen stock market. What about them?
That's a fantastic question. And it really gets into the nuances of the robotics market.
Yeah, it's not just the big names we've talked about, there's so much more to it.
You're right. Many other companies stand to benefit from this, not just the Teslas of the world.
So, beyond the obvious players, who else should investors be paying attention to?
Well, the manufacturers that supply the components for robots are really crucial.
Oh, yeah, like the companies that make the sensors and actuators.
Exactly. These companies might not be household names, but they're essential.
So, companies that are making those parts, they'll also see financial gains.
Absolutely. And when you look at the Chinese market, there's even more complexity.
Yeah, because not all of those companies are on the US stock exchanges.
Right. Some are listed on the Shenzhen or Shanghai stock exchanges.
So, how can investors get in on that?
It might require more research and access to those specific markets.
Okay, so it's not as easy as buying stock in a US based company.
No, and you have to oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, but can you give me at least some names, some companies that you might think might benefit from this beyond you know, the powerhouses that we already mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into some specific names of companies that might benefit.
It's a good idea to look at the broader supply chain, as you mentioned.
Okay, so you want some names beyond the obvious big tech companies, right?
Exactly. So, for example, in the US, there's a company called Cognex.
Oh, what do they do?
They specialize in machine vision systems, which are crucial for robots to see their environment.
Okay, so we make the cameras and the software that goes with them.
Yes, and then you have companies like iRobot that is moving into commercial applications.
Oh, yeah, they're the ones that make the Roomba vacuum cleaner, right?
Exactly. And they're expanding their reach beyond just home products.
So there are a lot of companies that might be big players without the flash of the humanoid robots.
Right. And then looking at China, it gets a little more complex.
Yeah, we were just talking about how some of those are on different stock markets.
Exactly. But some key companies to watch are Xiaomi, which is a major manufacturer of industrial robots.
Okay, so they're making the robots that work in factories.
Yes, and also you have companies like Eston Automation, which makes key components for automation systems.
Okay, so they're more on the supply side, right?
Precisely. And you have companies like Hike Robot.
Okay, and what is their expertise?
They specialize in mobile robots for logistics and warehousing.
Oh, yeah, we talked about the huge changes coming in the logistics sector.
And it's worth noting that these are just a few examples.
Yeah, it's a complex landscape with many different players.
And those are some names for you to consider beyond the high profile.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Okay, that was helpful, I guess. We are gonna finish this episode. Okay, if you have something to say, you the last words.
Well, that's good to hear that we were helpful. And yes, we're getting close to the end of the episode.
Yeah, we appreciate you sticking with us for all this. We do have a few more things to say.
Precisely. And it's worth noting as we wrap up that there's so much to this if you look at all the different parts of the supply chain.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks for clarifying that as a last point.
Of course, it's also important to consider the societal impacts and how that.
Okay, I'm going to stop them because they they wanted to keep talking. So this is over. This is our first episode about robotics. Very general stuff. In the future, we'll try to go deeper and learn more about the specifics. I hope this was helpful for you or and entertaining. And that's it. This is the end of this third episode from both sides.